All right, welcome back to the Dunk City podcast, brought to you by USCBasketball.com. Chris Houston here with Mark Backstrom. The Trojans moved to 17-6 overall, 6-6 in conference play, following a victory, 81-75 victory over Indiana on Tuesday night. This came on the heels of a 78-75 win over Rutgers in Galen on Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon, I should say, and that was on the heels of a very tough 1-point loss to Iowa in Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa City on Wednesday. When we last talked to you, that was following the Wisconsin victory. There seems to be a pattern emerging that the Trojans don't seem to be capable of winning by a large margin anymore, and it's to be expected given that the Trojans do not have a large margin of players on their roster to deal with. And so they're dropping like flies. Chad Baker-Mazara, the latest to go down. We don't know exactly how long he's going to be out, but it does look like, according to Eric Musselman, a MCL sprain. Who knows what that means? Certainly he's not going to be 100%. But the other thing that Mark and I talked about on the last pod was, or at least mused about, was when would Alijah Arenas break out? We talked about when his breakout game would come. For the Trojans, it came a little bit sooner. I thought it would be Rutgers. I think we predicted Rutgers, but Indiana's a pretty good breakout.
I said Penn State. We kind of split the difference here.
Yeah. So Indiana was splitting the difference. Alijah Arenas, 29 points, still not the most efficient shooter, but 29 points is 29 points. It seems that as soon as Chad Baker-Mazara went down, this kind of cleared the way for him to start scoring. So it's a funny thing. There's going to be a lot of players on this team who end up scoring. How many players scored at least 25 points in a game this year? I feel like there's been obviously Rodney Rice did, Chad Baker-Mazara has, Alijah Arenas now has. I'm pretty sure Cam Woods did, Ezra Asar did.
Yeah.
It's just
Kofi
kind of
did too, right?
I think Kofi might have, but it's pretty remarkable overall. Just what this team is able to put together. 17-6 overall, 6-6 in conference. Winners of 2 in a row. They now go on the road to play Penn State. That game is going to be on Sunday, 9 a.m. Tip-off for the West Coast, and which will be an interesting adjustment for the Trojans. We don't know if Chad Baker-Mazara will be playing that game. I would guess he's probably not going to be, and the Trojans are going to have to work their magic, and hopefully we will see with Alijah Arenas. Maybe he can put up back-to-back games of big time scoring, like the other guys on the team who had been carrying the team all year, like first Rodney Rice and then CBM, who then of course got hurt. So hopefully he will not. Hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully other people can stay healthy, and other people can step up. Certainly, we've seen Cam Wood step up. Ohio State on Wednesday, February 11th, 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and then the Trojans have a full week off. So it's a pretty basic 2-game road trip out east. I think this is the last time the Trojans have to go out east all year. The rest of the season, they are in the Pacific time zone. But we talked about this last week, Mark. The Trojans just play better on the road, as it seems, and they kind of hang on at home, don't they?
They do. We do. By the way, a little reset here. Glad to be 500 again in conference for the first time since we left the court at Chrysler Court. Forget which one it's called. The Trojans are now a cock-free program for the rest of the regular season. Let's definitely celebrate that. No more peacock. And by the way, do we have a zoo here for all these? I like to joke that we have all these birthing a giraffe kind of wins that are they're not easy. I think we've got about 5 in our zoo now.
Yeah, we birthed the giraffe, we birthed a rhino. what's that movie? We bought a zoo. I don't even know what
Yes,
that Matt Damon movie. It's a
we
little
birthed a zoo.
it's such a weird year. There's been a lot of weird USC basketball seasons over the years. This goes down as one of the weirdest ones, and a little bit bittersweet, of course. But man, what a testament to the resilience of this team and people stepping up to be able to beat an Indiana squad who had beaten UCLA uh, the game before, and not an incredibly great Indiana team, but certainly good enough to give a depleted USC team all it could handle. But look, the Trojans hung in there, got it done. Somehow, Eric Musselman is figuring out how to do this. Incredible coaching job on his part. Looks to me like they seem to be on track to make the tournament at this point.
Yeah, I just saw something that Lenardi had us in the last four buys. It's funny, during last night's broadcast, as we record this on Wednesday, Matt Muehlbach, very good to have him back in my life too. Another Pac-10 standout baller and podcaster. I haven't heard his podcast. Broadcaster though, really good. Was good to hear him again. Hadn't heard him for a while. He pointed out something that was funny when he said when Musselman was the CBA, he said, "My roster didn't change by the day; it changed by the hour." So I'm kind of used to this.
Makes sense. Yeah. And look, the Trojans are 48 in Ken Palm, and they are sticking in there. I mean, 17-6 in the Big Ten, 6-6 with this roster. Makes you wonder, as I've lamented over and over again during these podcasts. It's just it's like we are not allowed. USC basketball is just clearly not being allowed to have nice things for some reason. But it also seems that if any coach can overcome that that sentiment, maybe Eric Musselman can.
Yeah, if this program was a book in the Bibles, it would be Lamentations, correct? That's all I know about the Bible. My mom brought me to a lot of Sunday school. Fear not, Chris. I actually have the answer for why we're suffering so many injuries. I didn't run this by you, but I didn't figure this out. Somebody who knows much more clearly than you and I about USC basketball has figured this out. His name is one Scott Wolf. And from a recent tweet, I will quote,
"He's still alive.
Musselman should evaluate what he and his staff have been doing in response to the number of injuries that he's had in the last couple of years." So it's a coach.
Wait, say that again. He said what?
Musselman should evaluate what he and the USC staff have been doing. That was in response to the number of injuries we've had since.
What is he? What is Musselman and his staff like busting kneecaps when there's when in their spare time? What's going on?
Did you not see? It was actually Will Conroy who ran on the court and took out CBM's knee last night. That was actually one of the coaches. Yeah. Clearly, it's on the coaching staff. Right, that's it for Scott Wolf. Just had to throw him under the bus for 10 seconds. I just seconds here.
Didn't know he was still alive, so it's interesting on that.
Well, yeah, if you're on campus, he's pretty much not. So we'll keep it at that.
Right. Well, I think he lives in Whittier or something like that. But anyway, yeah, it's look. There are seasons that are bad luck seasons as far as injuries go. USC hasn't typically had these types of sort of injury. Like the last time I could, this is like right in our wheelhouse. The last time we saw something like this, I think to this extent, was when Sam Clancy got hurt way back in his what would have been a sophomore year when the Trojans started, I think 5-0 in conference the year before they went to the Elite Eight, and I think they had lost Clancy. I think they lost Jarvis. That was basically the Al-Madbari, the bringing in Abdullah Al-Madbari. Like he was forced to play because there was like 3 guys hurt or something like that. But yeah. Sorry.
So Jarvis that was hurt. I think that was the same season, if I'm not mistaken, where we lost Trepanier for part of that season until he got married. Google that for those of you that are new school.
Yeah. I think he that whole dumb scandal. But that was a mess. Or that might have been the year. I think he was actually out the year after the Elite Eight, right? No, you're right. The year the year of the Elite Eight was when he came back. Right, he came back at the end after being out for a while. But look, we've seen these types of years where there's but it's usually a piecemeal situation. D'Anthony Melton with his issue, it's usually one player, or another player gets hurt, or another player has an issue. But we've never seen basically the top lead guard, the point scorer, the top defender, now the other top scorer, the top incoming freshman. And we had been having freshmen hearts explode on the on the court during summer practice. So at least that didn't happen this year. Getting stuck in a Tesla and almost getting burned alive is one for the pretty creative for the right whoever the writers are for this ridiculous miniseries that is USC basketball. It's come on, it's this is what is it's not an episode of ER, you know what I mean? We let's start getting some realistic kind of narratives.
Yeah, the injury storyline has gone 2 seasons too long. When we're getting to this kind of stuff, it's okay, this is just not believable anymore.
Yeah, come on. It's it's those TV shows that the first season's kind of it gets really good the first and second seasons, and then the third season's when it gets popular, and then the producers are oh, we have a really popular show, we didn't plan on having more than 3 seasons, so let's extend this storyline of this irrelevant character just to stretch it out, and then the show goes to shit. It's kind of that.
It's a show about a librarian, and all of a sudden let's throw an exploding car in there just to mix it up, right?
It's absurd. It's absurd. I'm not I think for a long time I was a big exponent of the idea of the curse of USC basketball, but then I decided to just say this is stupid. There's no such thing as curses. And but man, there is such a thing as bad luck, and there's definitely been a string of bad luck with USC basketball under Eric Musselman. Ironically, last year there wasn't a lot of injuries, right? Wasn't as I recall, wasn't everyone fairly healthy for most of the year? Or am I misremembering?
Williams, Nolan was out for a while with a concussion, and I think when he came back, he wasn't all there.
Yeah, but it wasn't anything major like this, right? It wasn't anybody who was coming in playing at a really high level and out for the year and thinking, what could have been. If you switched the injury situations year to year, last year for this year, like I said, I think we're looking at a top 10 team probably, because if this team is 17-6 with this roster, you got to think that it's probably it's probably in the top 4 teams in the Big Ten, I would say, with the full roster.
Yeah, and the thing is, look, I don't believe in curses either, but I'll just say that we Trojan basketball fans all have a lot of the same tattoos, as I like to put it. And this is another tattoo. And just, honest to God, in the first half, Arenas is having by far his best game. We'll get to that a little bit later in more detail. But I was just thinking to myself, all right, with Woods and Arenas and Baker-Mazara, this feels like a settled backcourt now. Mm-hmm. So to the extent that my sentiment jinxed it, I apologize, but we've kind of all done that in our minds, right?
Yeah,
we've all jinxed it.
Totally. You were the guy who was on Woods earliest, as far as seeing what was there and where he could go. So I think that kudos to you for seeing that. I think Cam Woods is now a established starter, and obviously Arenas is starting to blossom a bit. You still have the front court, which is pretty good and solid. You have Gabe Dines coming back in and having 3 big blocks. In general, this is still a very tough defensive team. They block a lot of shots. They still play hard, and certainly, with the exception of those 2 games in Michigan, this is not a team that is not in every game. They're in every game, and they're pretty tough.
Yeah, one thing about that too, I kind of noticed this, and then my buddy, who may or may not have loaned me his Peacock login information, and his son went to IU, so he's a big IU fan. He said, our best player tonight basically never scores. And I think I've seen this before. It seems like a lot of Muss's defensive game plan is like, we're not going to let their number one guy get easy buckets on us. Number 3 and 4 might go crazy, but it's not going to be number one. And it's been working largely so far. But I think where that really burns you is a team like Michigan or Michigan State, where number 3 or 4 is still pretty freaking solid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think also when you are shorthanded and you have to figure out, how do you match up against teams that are not as shorthanded, you probably divide the game up into sections and try to focus on winning those sections and then getting to a certain point of the game where you can, there's a certain point in the game of basketball where, if the game is close at a certain point, then pretty much all bets are off. And then it is coming down to things like mental toughness and resiliency and playing tough defense and making sure you don't screw up at the end, kind of thing. And this team is a tough team, one of the toughest teams I've seen at USC in a long, long time. I can't remember a tougher team, to be honest. The team that has overcome more adversity and has been as good as it has, producing as good of a record as it has in a really tough conference. Very impressive.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is when you have, I'm biased towards just really, really good defenders. And I think when you have a guy like Easter and a guy like Dickerson, that kind of infects the locker room in a positive way. And if there's one word that describes to me Cam Woods, it's tough. The guy's just he's not big, but he plays with such strength and just toughness too, that I think that you've kind of reached the critical mass of just like this is our, at least into our identity at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Trojans are 6-6 in conference. They're tied with Indiana now. They're going to play. They're going to Penn State, who's the worst team in the conference, 1-10. They've got Ohio State, who is about where USC is, 6-5. And then it starts to get
you got a week off.
Yeah, you get a week off. Maybe you get healthy. Maybe whatever's going on with CBM can be ameliorated by then. But then you get the other bad team in the conference. You got Oregon, and then you get a middling team like UCLA, and maybe I'm thinking a Nebraska team that maybe, hopefully, starts to run out of gas toward the end. Might have a little trouble on the road, and then of course Washington, which again is 4-7 in conference, beat USC earlier, but certainly hasn't really been able to build on what it did early in the year. So I really think you have a chance to sweep UCLA. That doesn't mean you're going to do it, but you have a chance to do it. You have a chance to beat Washington. There's a chance to beat Nebraska. You should beat Oregon. Should beat Penn State. So, I think you're looking at a bare minimum of 3 more wins here in conference, and likely 4 more wins. So I think you do get to that 10-10. So
in a conference, I want to say that Joe Lunardi had, I think, 11 bids. So if you're 500 in 11 bid conference, you're in really solid shape.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you are the metrics guy for USCBasketball.com. You have your own proprietary metrics ranking system, Buck Metrics, and I am curious as to what you saw in the numbers over these last 3 games and how you think that's going to play out going up against Penn State and Ohio State without CBM. Whether the Trojans will be able to, it's one thing to lose him in game, right? And you make the adjustment, you bounce back. The other team, plans on trying to stop him, right? So they have their game plan that gets thrown out. There's a bit of a weirdness to it. Now there's going to be a game most likely where he is not playing. So the game plan is a little different. What do you think from a metric standpoint? The challenges are going to be for USC coming up?
Well, the first thing that stands out is obviously there's going to be a lot more on Arenas, as we saw in the second half of last night's game. There was an interesting quote after the game from us where he said, "Yep, I started Arenas on purpose. I didn't want to just kind of like slowly blend him in. Like I've talked about getting the freshman miles on somebody." And he said, "Yeah, I don't think he said it cost us the game, but he said I did that on purpose with the bigger picture in mind." And I bring that up because in these last 4 games, here's Arenas's BPO. These are all in order: 27, 37, 41, and last night 51.3.
Trending upward.
Yeah, and that's again, the standard I like is Wesley Yates. He was our best player by the end of last year. He had a long kind of runway to kind of before the airplane took off, and we saw the airplane take off in game game 5 for Arenas. So
yeah.
Now to your point, what's interesting is to use a really deep pull here. Do you remember? I think it was in the Charlie Parker era when we played UMass. When Camby was there,
I kind of blacked out during that time period.
Okay,
but I remember playing Massachusetts vaguely.
So what was weird was we were hanging with them until Marcus Camby got hurt, and then it all fell apart. To your point, it was like, well, what do we do now? It was like we had no idea what to do, and I think there was probably some element of that last night where there's like, okay, Arenas is good, just don't whatever. And Indiana was kind of scrambling to say, what do we do with with this guy?
Yeah.
It's going to be very different now. I don't think that really bites us in the posterior at Penn State because they're just a bad defensive team. I can't believe how bad their numbers are for a Big Ten team. I think it's probably more of an issue at Ohio State. Or they're pretty average. I mean, we're actually a better defensive team than Ohio State is. So we'll see. We might be able to sneak through on those, without him. Just assuming that CBM doesn't make the trip and somehow is able to, come back or return to action when we're home again. Some other things. One area that you and I disagreed on the last podcast was, one of the concerns I have about this team is it's the turnover tsunami. And it almost did us in against Rutgers. We had a mini tsunami last night against Indiana. And I need to see that. Now, maybe that rights itself with Arenas handling the ball more. I think that, Baker-Mazara's handles get a little loose from time to time. And I think that Arenas' turnovers seem to be just like freshman stuff. Just like, oh, I can't really make this pass because this guy's as tall as me. I'm not, at Hawthorne or whatever. So I think we will see some improvement in that regard. Hopefully, it's a disturbing trend. You kind of had both. You kind of had that at Iowa too, but it reversed itself. We kind of reversed the tsunami, an act of God, I think is what that's called. A couple other things that are just not really metrics, but I think just that I observed. One thing that I think was really vital to me was how Cam Woods, he was efficient, but not Teen Wolf, if you will, in the Rutgers game. He played within himself. He didn't come out there and say, yep, my team now, I'm going to beat my chest and I'm throwing up 30 shots no matter what. He wasn't awesome, but he played so well within himself. That was just important to me. And one of the things, just to wrap up the Rutgers game, at least, the thing I loved, to go across sports and football, if a running back fumbles or a wide receiver just drops an easy pass, you go back to him. I love that the first guy off the bench against Rutgers was Jerry Easter. It was just like, yep, all right, you know what? You made a bad foul. I'm still with you.
Yeah. Well, you have to keep his confidence up, but he's a good player, and you have to keep letting him get better. But little things you see, like Cornish coming in and blocking that shot against Indiana at the end, that kind of thing. This is it's not easy to block shots. You can, in this day and age of college basketball, you can get called for a foul, but to go in there and make a clean block in those types of situations is pretty good stuff. Looking at Alijah Arenas, the comp I want to make isn't like a direct athletic comp, because I don't think he athletically is the same as this guy, but He reminds me a lot of first year Kobe on the Lakers.
Yep.
In the sense where it's like, Kobe eventually became a strong kid. He was strong, later on in his career. And like, he grew up, right? He matured. But that first year, he, was out of high school. He was 19 or whatever. And he was light, but he was so quick. He was so quick, could split defenders, could, did a little bit of magic kind of stuff and threw up stuff that like you were like, the old no, 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 yes, yes, yes type of stuff. And Arenas is one of those types of players. He just is a dazzling player on the court, and you just never. He could just have a night where nothing goes in, and he could have a night where everything goes in. It's kind of how I see it. And if he can find a consistency where it's like he limits, it kind of eliminates more of the bad shots, that I think that he's going to, he could just have a great finish to the season and really help pull the team, from this, over this hill that they have to get over without all these players. And again, it's like it's that one thing you want. We've been wondering, what would it have been like to have all these guys playing together at a high level? Now that Arenas looks like he can play at a high level, we don't have Chad Baker-Mazara, but maybe Chad Baker-Mazara comes back, and at least maybe he comes back in the Big Ten tournament, for example, and perhaps you get two really good scorers in that backcourt who are going to be really hard to deal with.
Can I don't know if it'd be a counterfactual, because it'd be maybe the real factual. Are there enough basketballs for those three guys on the court?
Who's the
if
third
you
guy?
have Baker-Mazara and Arenas and Rice.
Oh, well, Rice isn't coming back though, is he?
No. But you're saying if.
Well, yeah, like in the old.
If
like
we had all those three.
Well, yeah, I think
I don't know how well the ball moves.
Well, I think you have a level of one game, maybe it's not their game, like it's like not all three of them are playing at a high level every game, but when you have three guys who are capable of playing at a high level, you're going to have at least one of them playing well every game. You're going to have probably one or two games where all three don't play well. You're going to have 5 games where all three play really well. And you're going to have 10 games where 2 out of 3 play really well, right? It's just like it allows you to create a spectrum of possible outcomes. When you have 3 guys who are high level scorers, the range of outcomes where 2 of them are scoring at a high level, especially like Rice and Mazara, who are just veteran kind of guys. There was a level of consistency before Rice got hurt that was already showing up, and there was definitely Baker-Mazara's consistency has been outstanding for the most part. He's had a couple games where he hasn't been as good, but he's for the most part been really hard to stop. And he hasn't really had too many crappy games. So I think you can go back and do ad hoc kind of fill in the gaps and think that if Arenas doesn't get in that accident, then you probably see. He's at worst. He's an incredible guy off the bench early on, and he's the guy who comes in and scores when one of those other 2 guys isn't scoring.
Well, and just to clarify, with following the absurd injury arc / storyline in the series here, so you're presuming that had he not gotten in the car accident, he doesn't tear his meniscus then too.
That's actually that's actually a great point, because they had found something. Thanks to Sky's great reporting on this, they had actually found something that was already there when they went in. When he got hurt, they found a situation that was needed to be dealt with. So I think that there is, that's a good point. Like I guess what I was thinking is that the different timelines, right? Like he probably doesn't hurt his meniscus, and they probably don't find out about the problem with it that needs surgery, and maybe he gets hurt later during the season as a result. But But yeah, I just think in general, like if he hadn't been in some sense damaged goods coming into the year, you have a whole new situation with the team.
Yep, agree. Hey, one other thing about the last night's game, you mentioned it briefly. Gabe Dines, 7 rebounds in 17 minutes, 3 blocks, really good at the same time moving his feet, but staying on his feet.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't fall for a lot of ball fakes that they try to throw at him. Also really important because Indiana was very aggressive to double team him as soon as he got the ball. 0
Mm-hmm.
turnovers, which is a big improvement from earlier in the season.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, the team showed up as far as the rebounding, 40 rebounds in that game, out rebounding Indiana 40-25. That was big. You had Arenas picked up 6 boards. Cam Woods had 6 boards. And like you mentioned, Gabe Dines with the 7 boards, and then just 8 blocks down. Dines had 3, and 5 other guys had 1. So the defense is there. You're getting as many turnovers as assists these days, it seems, but and it's weird. Some games you see guys contributing a lot off the bench, and then you see games like this Indiana game where there just wasn't a lot. Of course, Jordan Marsh doesn't seem to be fully back 100%. Only played a minute. But and then Terrence Williams is he hurt? Is that what his
It's
what they're
interesting.
saying?
They a couple games ago, I forget which one it was. They said that it sounded like he just might not be fully back yet. He might have
Mhm.
suffered a setback.
Yeah, yeah. So look, I mean, you go through the Terrence Williams, Jordan Marsh, Chad Baker-Mazara, Alijah Arenas, Marion Dickerson, Rodney Rice. That's a lot of injuries to lose significant game time over the course of a season. And yeah, but just kudos to the staff for figuring things out. They do have a good. I mean, look, they're not completely bereft of players or talent. They do have a good. Amazingly, the front court, knock on wood, has been able to play uh, pretty injury free most of the year. You have that good core of Asar and Kofi and Dines that has been pretty solid all year and pretty consistent all year. And then it's really just been getting those guards healthy and consistent, and guys are stepping up there too. So I mean, it's one of those things where there's so many unknowns as far as like who's going to be playing the rest of the season. But hey, right now they look to be on track to make the tournament.
Yeah, one thing about the front court too, and again, look, with all apologies to Scott Wolf, I'm not going to pretend to know more than Muss. Maybe I would like to see some more minutes from Dines, only because, as we saw last night, Kofi and Nassar are not the best at staying out of foul trouble,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually both fouled out. They're both on the bench at the end of the game last night.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you can just maybe get 6 or 7 more minutes out of Dines just to give those guys a break, I think that could benefit itself because they have been healthy. To your point,
that's a great point. 17 minutes from Gabe, pretty solid. But yeah, it would be nice to see him maybe against Penn State. Maybe Penn State's the kind of game
yeah,
where he can go um, and help out there. I think the Trojans play great on the road, and Penn State's not very good. Ohio State, like you said, is average. Feels like based on the way things are going, it's most likely a split, and that would be a solid situation, solid outcome. But man, if the Trojans, I'm thinking, they got to be thinking if we can beat Penn State as they should and steal one in Columbus, then they're in great shape, aren't they?
yeah. I mean, 8-6 with you know, uh, 2 of the top 6 still to come in, like you said, in
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska and Illinois. But it's not impossible. Like I said, Ohio State's a pretty, they're a good offensive team, but they're not a great defensive team.
Mm-hmm.
And Penn State's underwater. I mean, they have a higher defensive BPO than offensive BPO, which says a lot. maybe they scheduled really tough and out of conference, he said sarcastically. But I think that, that's when you can't, weirdly, as good as a road team as we are, we can't drop that one.
Yeah.
That would, yeah.
Well, this team can very well sweep the Bruins, beat Washington in Seattle because they play well on the road, and Washington isn't great. And they could sweep this road trip, and they may only have they could potentially have only 2 losses in them the rest of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, to your point, I'd be happy with 4-4. I did 10-10 at this conference, a really good conference, with some regrets about like the Northwestern game and the Washington game. But, every team has the dumb loss every now and then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 4-4 seems like the most likely outcome. If you get 6-2, I mean, you're looking at 23 wins going into, you're looking at what, 12 and 8 or 12 and 8 in conference, and you're going into Big Ten tourney. I can't remember what was the bye situation like. It depends on where they.
It's like there's like a first 4, and then it's like a Royal Rumble. Then you have like 4 more teams and come in, and then everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. So, wow, it's just I look at it, it's amazing to see Penn State, Oregon, and Maryland all with 1 win each in conference.
Yeah, Shellstead's been out, and Biddle, I don't think he ever came back. I think we need to change his name to Nate Brittle, can't we?
It's a good one. Okay, so the Trojans again are at Penn State, February 8th, Sunday, 9 a.m. tip off. Do you think that's going to be an issue? This early tip,
Chris. I will be at Santa Anita that morning, and I will be at Santa Anita at 9 a.m. And if I can make it in time at Santa Anita to break open the laptop and watch it, I think the team can handle it.
Well said. Well said. All right. Well, I'm gonna predict a sweep on the road
Nice.
with these 2 teams because look, and maybe they're going to fall to earth because at some point you get so many injuries. I think that there's this impetus to basically like to do your best, and when things are tough, you might be like, well, we're doing the best we can, but if they lose the game, they're not going to feel horrible about it because of the injuries. But I don't think this team is like one of those teams that would think that. So I think that people seem to be stepping up. I think they're having still having fun out there. And hey, Alijah Arenas, if he comes back against Penn State, has another big game, he's going to start feeling really confident. I think he already feels really confident now. So again, he knows he can play college basketball. He knows he can score 29 points. This is what, his 3rd game back? Fourth game back. He scored 29 points in his 4th game. It's right on schedule, I'd say, for someone who is that highly regarded.
On schedule. That's 4 conference games. He didn't have a Santa Cruz or anything in there. I think he's way ahead of schedule.
That's a good point. Yeah, but it's for someone that highly touted, for someone who that highly thought of, right? Someone who was considered like a potential one and done type guy. And again, that's going to be an intriguing aspect of the offseason is, if you are Alijah Arenas and you have this situation with your knee, and that has kept you out for most of the year, and you're playing towards the end, but you're playing in less than ideal circumstances given the rest of the team's injury status.
Yeah.
Again, but this is the other thing where it's like, hey, maybe he wants to go after this year, and maybe he feels that if he can show it, like maybe the motivation is to go out there and just have a massive finish to the year. And if he does that, so much the better for the team.
Well, and to complete the thought, where I thought you were going, look, I'm delighted with what we're getting out of our front court, but if you throw in the 2 Ratliffs too, and I mean, how much easier does it make his job, and just to get even for a guy that can create his shot outside and in the paint?
Yeah.
I mean, this could just be, it could just be just a 32 game showcase for next year with those guys just creating all kinds of space for him.
No, we can indulge ourselves to think about the potential of being able to retain some of these guys. If you can retain Alijah Arenas for 1 more year, and this is not a kid who is hurting for money, right? Comes from NBA family. So that's not the issue. It's merely a competitive nature thing for him. But if he wants to just make money, uh, he's gonna do fine in that regard, no matter where he is. But if you can get Alijah Arenas back for another year, if you can get Jacob Kofi back for another year, and then you keep Jerry Easter, keep Gabe Dines, bring in maybe Gabe Dines. I don't know if he's might be the odd man out if when the Ratliffs come in.
Is
You
Rodney
get that.
Rice, isn't he a junior too?
He is a junior. Yeah, he in theory could come back as well. But I think that he's either gonna. I think that if he comes back and if you get him and Arenas back with Kofi and the Ratliffs and Jerry Easter, man, that's a pretty intriguing team, pretty intriguing roster. Lots of great potential for injuries in the future.
Yeah, I was
For
going to
that
say
team.
we haven't been that excited about a team since Enfield last season.
Exactly. Um, that brief shining moment, like I forget when was it, like back in against Oregon or back against maybe in the Maui Classic, the brief
Was
shining
it Seton
moment
Hall?
might have
Where
been.
did we beat? We lost Oklahoma.
No, that you're right. That year, I'm talking about this year. We
Oh,
had that brief shining moment
yes.
where it was becoming clear that Rice and Baker-Mazara were going to be, an incredible 1-2 punch, this year,
Yeah.
and then
Yep.
Dickerson was going to be an outstanding defender, and then it just kind of, he was going to be way more than enough to withstand the loss of Arenas for that long.
Yes. Actually,
Um,
Dickerson is a junior too, I believe, right? Is he not?
I thought he was a senior.
Okay.
Um, Certainly, in this day and age, there are guys who are.
Well, can he just go to court and just say, I'm a junior now?
I think so. I think you can't. You just like. I mean, if you can have. I mean, he's listed as a senior, but he might have a fifth year potentially. But if Amari Bailey can come back from
Yeah.
the NBA and play, I don't know. It's a little confusing out there. I don't know who's going to be back, but I do know that there's going to be at least two Ratliffs on the team, and those guys are great players. Going to be really fun to watch. If you can just get those two guys and Arenas back, that'd be a great core. Or those two guys and Rodney Rice, that's a great core to start with.
Yeah.
Anything after that, you at this point you got to really trust Muss's ability to get guys in the transfer portal. Uh, you didn't have as much time to do it the first year, but the second year you saw the magic that he was able to put together for this roster, and it didn't work out because of injuries. But you got to think, man, he's going to be, pretty
Didn't work out. We're
motivated.
17-6. Somebody's got some really high standards here. My gosh.
But you
That's
know what
really
I mean.
that speaks to where we are. It didn't
Right,
work out.
that
We're
speaks to
17 and
how good of
6.
a coach he is, but also like,
Yes.
it's when I say it didn't work out, certainly in his mind, when he had these guys, he thought, oh, this is going to be the hell of a team. And they're a good
Yes.
team, right? And they have a good record, and they've been able to overachieve despite the injury. I got to think that must, after they won the Maui Classic, for example, he had to be thinking, oh, I've got a real killer of a team here. So yeah, I like to see what he does in the portal with the chip on his shoulder. The other thing is, we don't know what kind of money they're going to have next year.
Yeah.
So
I think that might be the limiting factor here.
because certainly football is sucking up a lot of that money with their recruiting class and all that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I looked it up real quick. I think if we want Dickerson back, I think he's definitely eligible. 2 JUCO years, 1 full year at Robert Morris, and just 8 games this year. I think he's probably got 2 more years eligibility.
Well, great point. Well, I mean, if he wants to come back, he's certainly welcome.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But but at the same time, you could also go play. You can go play overseas and have fun and make a few bucks. I don't know. Who knows who knows what's in store for anyone's roster these days. So, well, unless there's anything else to add, I think we can wrap this one up. Once again, Trojans are 17-6, looking pretty good despite the injuries. USCBasketball.com is your home for Trojan basketball discussion. Be sure to get out there and get on the board and talk Trojan basketball. Be sure to get out to Galen. We appreciate you listening. Please subscribe, give us a good review, review, tell your friends, all that good stuff. all the boilerplate stuff that you hear podcast hosts say at the end of a podcast. Yada yada yada. So, Mark, I will sign off and leave you with the the final word.
Thank you as always for listening, and as always, fight on.